To implement validation rules, we're going to use a very powerful library called Joy. So search for npm joy with an I. Let's take a look here. On this page, you can see an example of using Joy. Basically, the idea behind Joy is to define a schema, which is a simple object. In this object, we're going to add all our properties and their validation requirements. For example, we can tell Joy that username is a string, it's alphanumeric, it should have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 30 characters, and it's a required field. Similarly, we can apply regular expressions to strings. Similarly, we can say birth year should be a number, it should be an integer between these values, or email should be a string of type email. So it comes with a lot of predefined validators, but you can also add your own. So here in the terminal, let's install joy-browser. This is the implementation of Joy for browser. The version I'm going to use is 13.4. Okay, beautiful. Now let's go to our login form. Login form. On the top, we should import Joy from joy-browser. Now in this component, we should define a schema. The schema doesn't have to be part of the state because it's not supposed to change. So we set schema to an object. In this object, we need two properties. Username, we set this to joy.string. That's a method we need to call. And we can chain another method required. So we can define these validation rules in a fluent way. Similarly, we're going to add password. That's also going to be a required string. Now, at the time of recording this video, we don't have really good IntelliSense when working with Joy-browser. If you're working in Node, the IntelliSense is better. So we have a schema. Now we can validate our object using one line of code. So here in our validate method, let's call joy.validate. The first argument is the object that we want to validate. That is this.state.account. The second argument is our schema. So this.schema. Now let's take a look at the result. So I'm going to log it on the console. So let's submit the form here. All right, here's our result object. It has an error property. This error has details, which is an array. Currently in this array, we have only one item. That's the error for the username field. Because by default, Joy terminates validation as soon as it finds an error. This is what we call abort early. So to fix this problem, we pass another argument here and we set options. So we set abort early to false. Save the changes. Now back in the browser, let's submit this form one more time. Now look at error, details. In this array, we have two errors, one for username, one for password. Let's expand one of these objects. So each object has a message that you have seen, and it also has a pass that is an array. And in this array, we can find the name of the target property. So this is the object that we get as a result of validation using Joy. What we need to do is to take this complex structure and convert it into a simplified structure that our application understands. So in this component, we have assumed that we have an errors object, and in this errors object, we have 0 or more key value pairs where the key is the name of the target field and value is an error message. This is our simplified structure. So in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to map the object that we get from Joy into our errors object.